Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants attending this session. My name is Jane Payumo, and I'm the Monitoring and Evaluation Lead for the Legume Systems Research Innovation Lab. I'm also a faculty member at Michigan State University and head of the Research Evaluation and Data Analytics team supporting AgBio Research, which is the research arm of the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources at MSU. You heard from our director yesterday in the opening session. My role today is to provide an overview of the cross-cutting areas that have an impact on the implementation of Legume Lab funded activities and how the lab is mainstreaming cross-cutting issues. I will also help moderate this session this morning. I'd like to begin this presentation with this theory of change, or TOC for short, the framework that guides the vision for the lab. As shown, the lab TOC begins with a set of critical inputs. These inputs include the management entity at Michigan State, in partnership with USAID, local and international partners, network of researchers, and the global legume community. The collaborative learning and adapting, or CLA for short, approach, combined with prior needs assessments and USAID resources, makes key program activities possible for the lab. This investments in targeted research and a balanced legume systems research portfolio are hoped to result in gender and youth responsive, nutrition-sensitive outputs, supporting the resilience of the legume value chain, food systems, and the global communities. These outputs, as you heard yesterday, are starting to fill in the innovation pipeline of the Legume Lab, which is now in its third year. And this could be potentially game-changing development technologies. We are seeing advanced cowpea breeding lines with desirable traits as an example. Knowledge in management practices such as integrated pest management control tools in the future in your smartphones. Or evidence-based research findings, including market system strategies and policies that will affect producers, buyers, consumers, and other economic development players and agents. Through effective and strategic outreach initiatives, these research outputs can then be transferred to end users, for example, to our farmers and consumers in the legume systems value chain, and encourage scaling and adoption, thus contributing to long-term outcomes and the global food security goals of USAID. You will note that the cross-cutting themes are at the center of the lab's TOC. The CLA feedback loops of collaboration, learning, and adaptation with recognition of the culture, processes, and resources are essential to producing results I've mentioned, as well as the results for the cross-cutting theme areas. Projects funded under the Legume Lab address 5 cross-cutting themes. This include gender, human institutional capacity development, or HICD for short, youth, nutrition, and resilience into their activities. I ask you to please visit this link below for more detailed information and description of each of these themes. So how is the lab mainstreaming these cross-cutting issues? In the field of international development, mainstreaming a cross-cutting issue is generally understood as a strategy to make that theme an integral dimension of the organizational design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of policies and programs. It also implies that relevant analyses are conducted as the basis for such integration. The cross-cutting theme strategy for the lab involves an iterative process, as shown in this slide, of integrating competitive priorities, objectives, and action plans, which encompasses top-down planning and bottom-up learning, shown in the previous slide. The major focus was on the careful design and implementation of rubrics or scoring tools to be able for us to assess the readiness and capacity of the projects before additional support is provided by the lab to address the cross-cutting themes and achieve the greatest impact. Results serve as baseline information on cross-cutting themes for these projects and the capture of cross-cutting theme performance metrics and indicators. These assessments also inform outreach and education initiatives and follow-up consultations. Gap areas that were identified resulted in a design of call for concept notes and additional technical assistance and capacity grants from the lab's management entity. It is also worth noting that beyond ensuring the integration of capacity development across cross-cutting themes, the purpose of this initiative is the design of a resilience framework to support the global legume value chain. A dynamic M&E dashboard, which is shown here, has also been created to capture data and information on cross-cutting theme milestones. To assist projects in identifying strategies and interventions to further incorporate these themes into the various research projects, the lab established the Resilience Resource Team, or RRT for short, which is the first of its kind for Feed the Future Innovation Labs. The RRT is composed of advisors in each of the cross-cutting areas, plus monitoring and evaluation and project management experts. RRT reports to the management entity and is composed of myself as lead, David DeYoung covering for project management, Dr. John Medendorp as our HICD and youth advisor, Dr. Andrea Allen as gender advisor, and Dr. Deepa Tyagarajan as our nutrition advisor. Previously, Dr. Leps Maleta advised for youth programming. Today, we are also going to hear from these advisors, and they will share some milestones and important lessons on mainstreaming cross-cutting issues by the lab. Dr. Allen will present some of our current successes and initial lessons in gender integration, which to date is better documented than other cross-cutting themes. Dr. John Medendorp will close this session with additional quantitative progress updates and other important developments on mainstreaming cross-cutting areas by the Legume Lab. So with that, I hope that this overview has given you some key points related to lab's efforts in mainstreaming cross-cutting issues. We wish to thank USAID for supporting these efforts of the lab and our partners. Welcome again to this session.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever and whenever you may be. Thank you to Jane and to other members of the Resilience Resource Team for the opportunity to showcase the Bruchid resistant bean team's work to build a gender-responsive breeding program in Southern Africa. Please note that all credit for advances shared during this presentation go to the team. However, any errors or failings of this presentation are mine alone. I will be sharing 4 phases of actions carried out to date and plans for the way forward. First, a brief backstory on the fundamental research design and later enhancements. Second, building customized capacity together with the GREAT program. Third, the evolving work plan and timeline for building a gender-responsive breeding program in Southern Africa. And fourth, results and measurement. First, a quick word on the background in this research project. This case features the work of the Legume Systems Innovation Lab commissioned activity designed for genetic improvement of dry beans for Bruchid resistance, most immediately in Malawi, Mozambique, and Zambia. Lacking the time to properly introduce each member of our research team, I would nevertheless like to highlight the role of Dr. Juan Osorno, lead PI in this initiative, who together with the co-PIs listed here in black font have each contributed significantly to this initiative. Additionally, the host country gender focal persons listed here in orange font have more recently joined the team in capacity and work planning efforts to date, making key contributions along the way. During the Resilience Resource Team's early review of this research project design and associated theory of change, we discussed ways that the already gender-sensitive research design, as noted in green font, can transition into a fully gender-responsive breeding program with the addition of dimensions highlighted in red font. Some of you may recall this diagram from my presentation in SALI last year. Here, a continuum of development approaches span left to right, beginning on the left with gender harmful practices and moving right to gender neutral and sensitive, and on to gender responsive and transformative. While transformative results are likely outside our sphere of influence, we can create gender responsive plant breeding programs, which assure that a significant portion of the varietal traits developed meet the needs of both men and women producers. For example, researchers in Western Kenya determined that in general men were more likely to trade off tolerance of climatic variations with marketability and select a highly marketable variety even when its yield was not the best. On the contrary, women put more weight on tolerance to climatic variations than on marketability when selecting varieties during their participatory varietal selection. Women were less likely to select KATB1 because of its poor productivity, despite its excellent market traits. If the product profiles for the final product development do indeed reflect these considerations, then the program becomes gender responsive. What this means to the development of Bruchid-resistant bean varieties in Southern Africa is continuing to unfold. And towards this end, our Southern Africa bean team was awarded a cross-cutting theme mini grant from the Legume Systems Innovation Lab, funding the launch of this program's transition to a gender-responsive breeding program, beginning at the activity level with capacity building. We have been very fortunate to engage the Program for Gender-Responsive Researchers equipped for agricultural transformation, known simply by its acronym GREAT, a collaboration between Cornell and Makerere universities. Funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, GREAT team experience includes working with researchers at multiple CG research centers, national agricultural research organizations, nonprofits, and others. The Bruchid-resistant bean team and I took our initial work plan based on preliminary research and team experience, and we asked for great capacity building specifically focused on gender-responsive work planning for this project. The GREAT team, led by Dr. Margaret Mangani of Makerere University, in turn assessed our team's current capacity via a pre-course questionnaire. Then, based on findings, GREAT suggested the addition of some preliminary work on gender equality and women's empowerment before jumping into the work planning activity, and hence this list of topics covered. Our workshop took place via one pre-course module delivered as videos in a resource file. The following live session on Zoom lasted 3 half days, comprising less than half of the GREAT course usual span of topics, due to our schedules and the need to be completely online during these COVID times. Our bean team found this experience quite valuable regardless. GREAT houses a strong team of trainers well informed in the scholarly literature per this recent publication by Dr. Eva Weltsian, plant breeder and collaborator within the CG System Gender and Breeding Initiative and a key presenter throughout our workshop. The GREAT team was also able to integrate recent advances on gender and plant breeding documented in the gray literature, which appears to be booming as well. One highlight of the workshop involved learning about key aspects of the gender responsive product profile development tool, which has been designed to fit seamlessly into mainstream CG System excellence in breeding product profile tool development, thereby assuring that gender dimensions are always part of the analysis of breeding goals and trait prioritization for the CG system. This G+ product profile tool, as it is commonly known, includes 2 components, each fitting nicely into the standard sequencing of breeding program activities as illustrated in this table. The first component, the G+ customer profile, provides an analytical framework to facilitate gender-responsive definition of customer segments, including agroecological and social differences, and their intersection with women and men's preferences for attributes of the product involved. In this case, the Bruchid resistant dry beans. Data feeding into this framework can be gleaned from existing data sets and supplemented with new data collected in surveys, focus groups, participatory varietal selections, and so on. The resulting customer profile in turn helps guide researcher queries in constructing the second component, the G+ product profile tool, which assures that the overall research program's product profiles are indeed gender responsive. To add a quick footnote here, I noticed that recent work on gender responsive green breeding in sub-Saharan Africa focuses mainly on East African countries and does not utilize the G+ tool set. And thus the team continues to use, thus our team plans to use the latest field tested version of this tool, which we expect to see out any day now, to update and add our knowledge to our knowledge of gender-based varietal selection preferences in current day Southern Africa. And hence the first step moving forward involves construction of a relevant G+ customer profiles for the Zambia bean region, then on to Malawi and Mozambique. We begin with a deep dive into locally available data and related reports in order to construct draft customer profiles, then identify data gaps to be filled with original research, surveys, focus group data, and the like. This specific set of activities has been designed to integrate gender responsive data collection, analysis, and continued capacity building at key points throughout the project timeline. Thinking back to the project's theory of change as shared earlier, we began our efforts to strengthen the gender response of this breeding program at the activity level with the intention of building researcher capacity in this area. Indicators noted by a check mark here have been measured, while those noted by a question mark still need to be finalized with the team, and additional funds must be procured to fully implement the envisioned gender responsive breeding program in the coming months. Ultimately, team members continue to keep their eyes on the prize of the end goal of this breeding program, the increased food security through adoption of Bruchid resistant common beans varieties available and utilized by women, men, young producers, and other value chain actors. While the work of this research team is positioned well upstream of the end goal, thus making measurement of our impact in the near term infeasible during the life of the project, that is, a gender responsive breeding program can nevertheless remove barriers and strengthen the possibility that resulting research products will, at the least, do no harm, and at best, make an equitable and empowering impact for the producers involved, both women and men. If you'd like to know more about this topic, I've provided a list of references here at the end, and I thank you for your attention, and please feel free to contact me for additional information.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Glad that you could be with us today. For the next few minutes, we would like to give you an update on the first round of the cross-cutting issue grants that were made last year. But before we do, we want to say just a few words about our approach to resilience. As we know, resilience is the ability to sustain shocks in systems. And there are several component parts to resilience. There are the economic pieces of resilience. There are the policy pieces of resilience. All of those are very important, but they tend to get attention in the way that international development projects are implemented. There are some neglected components of resilience that are not as obvious, but are just as vital, and it's those that we focus on in the lab. As you can see, those consist of gender-sensitive approaches to legume systems, also capacity development, both on the individual level, but also in terms of organizations and institutions. And finally, in nutrition, All three of these are important component parts of resilience. Without them, resilience cannot be achieved or sustained over time. And so we stress these in our cross-cutting issue grants. Just to give you a quick review of the grants that were issued under the first round, we have the Ohio State University grant, which is focusing on the nutritional content of the optimal shrub system cowpeas to see whether or not the OSS in fact delivers higher nutritional content. The second one is the nutritional capacity development for researchers. This is under Melinda Smalley's project in equipping her research to understand those nutritional components. The third one is gender-sensitive trait selection for the common bean. This is Juan Osorno's project at North Dakota State University, introducing the Bruchid resistant bean in Southern Africa, and they have already actually implemented their grant. The University of California, Riverside is also looking at nutritional analysis and trait selection for cowpea in Senegal and Ghana. And then finally, IITA received a grant to improve the capacity of farmers to use the farmer interface app that they've developed for some of the pests and diseases that affect the local farmers' crops. As I mentioned, Ohio State University is looking at the optimal shrub system to see whether or not it can actually deliver improved nutritional value through the cropping system that they are introducing. And as I mentioned, the project that's looking at fertilizer subsidies in West Africa, including the gender and youth components, they are using these funds to look at the crop diversity and diet quality as critical components of food security, including both cowpea production and consumption aspects. So these grants were given and were able to actually improve the implementation of the projects through these supporting cross-cutting issue funds that allowed them to expand their project's reach beyond their original proposals. So we want to say a big thank you to all of the project teams for what they've done. Obviously, you're the ones who are in the field and who are doing the work. We're here in a supporting role, but we want to encourage you to look at ways in which you could use these cross-cutting grants in order to support your project in the field. Thanks, everyone.